Welcome back to Ultimate Combat Radio with your host, Mike Stidham, on 1280 and 97.5 The Zone.
Welcome back to Ultimate Combat Radio. Mike Stidham here, talking some mixed martial arts. I love that groovy music, man. I was getting it on right there. This segment is brought to you by, well, let's call it by Mushin Self-Defense and Ultimate Combat Training Center. And it's the holidays, and now is the time to buy that special someone a membership to go and learn how to fight. Would you not agree, Brandon?
Yeah, definitely. Get in shape. It's that time of year for that, right?
Yeah, it really
resolutions
is. Absolutely. And we put a special up. If you went into Aztec Highway, either one of the locations, and spent over $100, we'll give you a free month at Ultimate Combat Training Center.
That's a deal.
Yeah, go in. And so if you want to buy some metal militia gear or whatever else, or even in the Romance Highway, go in there and do your thing in there. I don't know what your thing would be, but whatever your thing is, when you're done with that, you can we'll make a gift certificate for you to use as a stocking stuffer for somebody, and it'll look like you paid for it, but it's a free membership for somebody.
Use it for yourself.
Or use it for yourself.
Go buy some gloves up there in the cage, and
there you go.
Use it in the gym.
There you go. All right. So this week's poll question is managers, who needs them? And it was really awesome that Sterling and Suma kind of called in and weighed in on that topic. So we're going to kind of skip through that for this segment. We're going to talk to Joe about the last couple of weeks. We've had such awesome people on that we didn't really have time to get to the UFC.
Yeah, there's a few things I want to get back to.
There's a little bit of catch up to do. So let's do some house cleaning here.
There's a topic I wanted to bring up, and it kind of came from Eric Paulson after the John Jones beating Machida, and then Frank Mir breaking Nogueira's arm. They didn't go back and check on him to see if they were okay, and just they were excited and celebrating everything. And I wanted to bring that up to see if that's something you should do as a fighter. Should you go over there and say, "Are you all right? I'm sorry."
I was surprised to see Eric Paulson weigh in on that because he's usually not very openly critical of fighters. I mean, he's a guy that he's all about the fighters. So for him to weigh in, he felt strongly enough about it that, look, man, we had this same conversation, I want to say about a year ago when the topic came up about touching gloves before a round, and because Ben Fuamano went to touch gloves and he got cracked in the face by what's that kid's name?
Sean O'Connell?
No, it was the Lee. Anyway, the big heavyweight that everybody was so big on down south.
Ty Lee.
Yeah, Ty Lee. And so now all of a sudden nobody wants to touch gloves anymore. And I say, what? That's what makes this sport special. We're gentlemen about it. We hug each other after fights. We touch gloves before fights. So I really got the sense that Eric Paulson felt like, hey, man, this is my sport. You guys are serving as ambassadors for something that he takes ownership in, and he didn't like seeing that. And so I thought it was cool that he did step up and say something like that.
Yeah, and it led to a great conversation. I mean, what do you guys think? Should you be over there doing that?
My response is this, and I used to be a police officer, and the worst thing that can ever happen when you go to a scene where somebody's been injured is the mother is always right in the way, and you got to get her out of the way. When did these fighters become doctors? They have no place in that. The guy's down, he's unconscious, he's injured. You can see him in the back room and say, "Hey, I'm sorry," or "How you doing?" or check on his welfare. Then really let the professionals do what they're going to do. That's my opinion. And you certainly don't want to stand over them and simulate digging dirt and throwing it on them, anything like that. I think that's totally overboard. But to just get out of the way, I think that's appropriate in my opinion. But again, I see where Eric Paulson was coming from.
I think there's a happy medium, too. I think there's a way to not necessarily be in the way and going overboard with it, but also show your respects or, present yourself more professionally.
Even go over to the coaches and say, tell them.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, sometimes it gets heated over there, and you saw what happened with the Diaz brothers. You go in their corner, they're going to punch you. So
What about John Jones when he choked out Machida? You can obviously tell when you're doing a standing guillotine if somebody's falling asleep in your arms. You let him drop like that, or do you know what I mean?
I liked Machida's response. He said, "What do you want him to do? Make love to me after?" Because he said he did his job. He choked me out, and it's not like he's falling on brick, floor, and he's falling on the pad and whatever. So, I don't know. I just, there is a tactful way of doing things, and these guys are young. You got to remember, man, these guys are, first of all, they're 21 years old or however close to that, and they're in Vegas, and they're the coolest thing ever. They can't walk into a casino without people, following them around. So
I love that Paulson said they better be careful, though. They're training the next generation on how to treat them.
Exactly.
When they're in their...
So right. So right, though. You know what I mean? But these guys are young. I have a hard time being real super critical of them. As long as they don't do anything outwardly disrespectful, I'm not going to cut him too much or you get on him too hard about just being not overly respectful.
Now, what about, I don't know if you heard about this, John Jones went back to the corner and they caught it on camera. Greg Jackson telling him, go get some fans, go make sure he's okay.
That's a good coach. He's a good coach.
Interesting, though. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Isn't that something his manager should have been telling him?
Herein is part of my argument. I think the trainer and manager should probably be the same guy because they're so intertwined. And who knows better whether you're ready for a fight or not than your trainer? You know, and who knows better how you match up against that guy than your trainer? You know,
I don't think fighters, well, at least my fighters would get half as many fights as if I were in charge of their careers.
But you know what? That's how it should be. You know, I mean, these guys don't need to be fighting all the time if it's not a healthy situation for them. You know, I mean, guys that are doing it for a hobby, you know, guys like the Mike Christmans of the world, let them fight all the week. That's what they're doing it for. They're not trying to make big, you know, lofty goals here. They're just trying to fight. And so I think a manager, you sit down with a kid, if manager/trainer, you sit down with a kid and you talk about what are your goals here? What do you want to try to achieve with it? And then I'm going to help you try to achieve those. And so anyway, we got off the track there.
We can't help but get back to that manager subject.
It's coming up in this final segment, I tell you. What else you got, Joe?
All right. After that fight, after John Jones beat Machida, he went to number 2 in the pound for pound Yahoo poll, and I just want to read down the top 10. Anderson Silva, John Jones, GSP got bumped to number 3.
Well, let's stop right there. Why? Well, I mean, you know, and I've said this on the show that an ACL injury, man, you just don't come back the same fighter. And so, what has changed? Do you really feel like he's out of the running? I mean, what?
Well, I don't think you can call him the champ anymore. Really, I mean, they have the interim title fight coming up, and he hasn't fought in how long? It's going to be, by the time he fights again, it's going to be almost 2 years, I think. You know, a year for the injury, and then he hasn't fought since
April.
So even you agree?
I think he's done. He says he's going to come back. I think he's done.
Interesting.
That's big words.
Well, they put him at number 3, and Robertina puts him at out of here.
She's that quick to move on. Is John Jones your new thing, Robertina?
We'll see.
So then we got number 4, Frankie Edgar, Jose Aldo, Dominic Cruz, Junior Dos Santos, Gilbert Melendez, John Fitch, and Dan Henderson.
And Melendez is the kid from Bellator, right?
No, he's from Strikeforce.
Are you sure? Okay.
Gilbert Melendez, yeah, he's Diaz's training partner.
Okay.
He just beat Masvidal over the weekend and defended his title.
This is the way I view it. There's Anderson Silva, and then the rest of those guys.
Amen.
Over John Jones?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and look, Anderson Silva is reaching the twilight of his career. He's past 35, but he's still on top, and he's still on top by such a large margin. And I'm not going with nostalgia here when I say that I'm taking him over John Jones. I take him over John Jones resoundingly. And the only way, people are talking about Silva and Jones fighting each other. In fact, Dana White says he wants to put that fight together. To me, it doesn't make sense for Silva to have to do it. Why do you have to want to try to paint a guy into that corner that he has to take that fight to prove that he's pound for pound best? It's pound for pound. I'm in my pounds, you're in your pounds, and I'm the best by a long shot.
All right.
Okay. Thanks for that, Mike. So I'm telling you, you're going to eat your words when Chael Sonnen beats Anderson Silva. So,
According to Chael Sonnen, Anderson's yesterday's news. So,
well, you know, and I love Chael Sonnen. I'm a big Chael Sonnen guy. He's the best guy for a soundbite, but it is what it is. I don't think, I just don't think they compare to one another. We got a caller? Oh,
yep. Tim, he wants to talk about fighters and managers.
Tim is on the line. Tim, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
I would just like to comment on whether a fighter needs a manager or not.
Well, Tim, is this Tim the Pimp, T the P, Tim Peacock?
Yes, a.k.a. the Pimp. That's right.
Holy moly. How are you, Tim?
I'm great. Thank you.
Well, Tim, what do you think? Do fighters need managers, or is that a necessary part of what they do?
Well, look at Rocky. I mean, he did a lot better without his manager. You got a manager, but he ain't got no lock on me. I mean, after Mick died, he never lost.
I think you have completely wrapped it all up right there. This argument is over. What about you, Tim? You fought for a number of years. Do you feel like you needed a manager, or were you able to pretty much manage your own affairs as a grown man?
I was totally able to manage my own affairs. It was, as long as I was training, everything went well, And if I wasn't, it didn't go well. So I think the training and,
So your trainer was important.
Do you Do you think
the trainer is more important than a manager?
Do you?
And a good trainer will give you advice that a manager won't, and the trainer's looking out for you. I think,
I agree
as
with
opposed
you,
to
buddy.
manager.
Do you think if you would have had a manager, you wouldn't have taken that butt whooping from Ryan Bader?
No, I would have trained for that because I would have had a trainer instead.
Oh, so you're saying you lost to Ryan Bader because you didn't train?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Yeah,
man.
actually, yeah. I was at the UFC's party in the week before because I didn't have a trainer telling me I should be training.
You know, Tim, I got to say, man, I'm not going to completely argue with that because, first of all, Bader's gotten better since then. Let's admit that. But I think there's a lot of – I think Bader's got a lot of holes in his game, and Tim the Pimp exposed a few of them.
I went 2 rounds, and that last guy he fought, he knocked out in like 20 seconds. So,
all right, Tim, we got to run to a break. We've gone way late here, but I understand you wanted to give a shout-out to somebody.
Yeah, my buddy George Burrell, he's moving to New York.
Is that the little guy that was afraid of the vampire?
The vampire. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, tell him,
Yes.
see you later, man. And Tim, thanks for calling in. Thanks for listening.
Hey, thank you.
I love me some Tim Peacock. We got to take a break. We got more Ultimate Combat Radio when we come back.